I'm using the human first muscle in a lot of ways for myself and giving myself grace on learning because I
Mhm.
think when you come in and you don't know everything because you're not as fast as you were at the last place,
Mhm.
that can be a breeding ground for imposter syndrome.
All right. Hi there. It's Patrick Ewers. I'm the founder and CEO of Mindmaven, a executive coaching firm that basically focuses on helping leaders achieve their fullest potential by focusing on relationships. And one of the ways we achieve that is by teaching people to work with their assistant in a different way. And through that process, we can free up over 12 hours a week. And this is a one-time only, but because for the first time, can show my book, guys. This is the book that we just released a few weeks ago. It's called Radical Delegation, and basically talks about everything we do. But that's not what we're here about today. I'm super excited to introduce my next guest here on the Human First series. It's Stephanie Hess. Stephanie Hess just recently joined Discord as their Chief Communication Officer. Before that, I think you were leading marketing in various aspects at Asana. So a wealth of information, a wealth of experience that you will share with us. But first and foremost, congratulations on your new
Ah,
job.
thank you. It's fun to have a new job and meet a new set of family members, and I'm excited to talk to you. You are doing great work. I wrote down the name of the book so I can recommend it to my team because we all want good insights in this area. So thanks for
That's
taking the time
awesome.
to write that book and having me.
Well then, let's get going. I always
Yes.
start with this one question. That is basically, what does human first leadership mean to you?
Oh yeah. I love this topic, and it's been something that over the last, few years of my career I've leaned on a lot more. But to me, kind of human first leadership is really about the compassion and the empathy and the transparency you can bring to a team,
Hmm.
and being vulnerable in a way that shouldn't feel punitive, but should feel like you're engaging and leading folks with your heart. And that can happen in an organization, in a for-profit business. I believe it. And really kind of opening the lines of communication early and often.
Hmm.
So I'm working at it every day. I feel like it's a muscle that we all should be building. It doesn't go dormant. It is something that you bring to your work family and then in your personal life as well. So I'm a big fan and student, and I'm always on the journey to make sure that I'm doing it in the ways that matter.
You got me convinced. There's no doubt about it. But I would love to dig in deep and ask you why. Why do you think it is important to be that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think we spend so much time together. And, for me, I'm a first generation college graduate. I didn't
Mhm.
have relationships coming out of school. I didn't know how to build a network. My parents
Mhm.
were not in those spaces that I chose a
Mhm.
career in. And when you are giving your all to a company or a mission or an organization, you want to feel like it's all laddering up for a reason. And, making sure that you can build a team that works together with empathy and understanding, and keeping those pathways open for folks means
Mhm.
that the teams are going to gel faster, the collaboration is going to be better, and ultimately the work that you do for the company is going to have higher impact.
Okay, so the way I translate that over into my world, and correct me if I get this wrong, is twofold. Number one, it's just one of the best ways of running a business because you just are going to have more people be engaged, more empowered, and probably better results.
Yes.
So what I heard you say is number one, but I think even more important to you at least, it seems, is it's just not worth doing it any other way. You have so much time that you spend on your career. Sometimes your career actually forces you to sacrifice other elements of your life that you actually think is really important.
Yeah.
And it's got to be worthwhile. And it only becomes worthwhile if you feel like you are being treated as a human
Yes.
and are treating other people as a human. Is that a fair summary of what you
That
said?
that's right. That's right. I mean, we love what we do, and hopefully we all are lucky enough in our careers that we get to work with teams that feel
Hmm.
very supportive and are into the craft of what we do. And if
Hmm.
it just feels like we're moving dials and in pursuit of profit primarily, but not how we get the work done together, it feels
Hmm.
very empty. And
Hmm.
so I'm not interested in doing empty work. I'm
Right.
interested in doing work that matters with people that I care about. And so much of what we do can be transactional because we got to go through our lists of things. But if I can bring a leadership style that makes it feel like, hey, when we need to get through the list, we will. But when we come together around something, that's going to make the strategy better or the output really sing, especially if you have consumers who are also humans.
Yes, yes, indeed, right? Oh, that's so cool. I forgot to tell everybody, but I was particularly excited to have you come because you're actually in a very unique situation. That unique situation is that basically you joined a new organization, what, 6, 8 weeks ago. So it's really brand new to you. And so far, I've had people that are like very much settled in their job on the show in some form or other. And so you brought up this topic. I was saying, look, I think I'm even going about landing in this new job in a human first way. And so I'd love to just hear from like what are some of the things you experienced doing so and what are you doing?
Yeah. So you mentioned I was at Asana. I was there for over 5 years. It was an amazing experience. And then I took a break. I took a break for almost 10 months. And so I joined here about 6 weeks ago. And it's like learning a new language, right? And practicing the muscle of understanding that. But also, it's hard when you're the person that's coming in, even at the leadership level that I'm at, because this team has been together for a while and they've been through a lot. I mean, we've all been through a lot in the last few years as organizations and as companies. But my goal in coming is to be additive. And so, I'm using the human first muscle in a lot of ways for myself and giving myself grace on learning because I think when you come in and you don't know everything because you're not as fast as you were at the last place, that can be a breeding ground for imposter syndrome because you're like, oh, they hired me for a reason, but I'm not doing the thing yet. So I'm giving myself grace and, giving myself some advice, but also with the team, really
Oh,
wanting to
but
come in.
stop there. What
Yes.
exactly are you doing? How when you say I'm giving myself grace,
Yeah.
what exactly are you doing to basically support yourself in exactly the way you described? Because I thought it was
Yeah.
a very fair
So
point.
being mindful about my calendar, being mindful about the types of meetings that I'm doing and how much back-to-back meetings there are, because you need a minute to process. Um, Making sure, and I have an amazing person that helps me with all this here at Discord, who's just been brilliant and helping me architect what that day looks like. And then also not feeling like when I get home, I need to make a plan for something or I need to kind of put some strategy documents together to prove myself, but like letting myself absorb and doing, sticking to the calendar of I'm going to do these certain meetings, meet with these certain people, understand context for the business. I think our intuition as marketers and communications people is we want to type something up right away, and I'm resisting the urge to do that, which is hard because we're doers. I'm an Enneagram 2. I want to be a helper, and so in this moment, being a little selfish with the learnings of how the company works, what our consumers want, what the cross-functional teams are, is actually going to serve me well, rather than kind of typing up a slide deck on things. So that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
practice.
Oh, that's really interesting. So basically, if I translate it into my head, what I heard you say, if I may do that again,
Yeah.
uh, what you're saying is give yourself permission to land first and to learn first.
Land and learn.
And land and learn exactly, and see learning as part of performing,
Yes.
right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
if you do that, you end up probably ultimately getting faster to the point you want to get to anyway, where you are actually performing in the way you would, traditionally think about performing, writing that slide deck as the example you gave me. And what you're then doing there is probably going to be higher performant because it's just based on a more settled, more knowledgeable state than just this urge of wanting to prove to the world that you have a right to be here,
Yes,
right?
yes. And context is really important. And you could come up with lots of theories on what an organization might need or what are some actions you can take. But if you don't have the grounding in the context, it's going to feel a little hollow. And, I know we love to use playbooks in our profession and in my profession,
Mm-hmm.
but what I've learned over my career is that not all playbooks work at all places.
Mm-hmm.
So, for me, it's just bringing the context and the dot connecting ability to understand how
Mm-hmm.
teams work,
Mm-hmm.
how the work works, where to find the work, and then
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, how do you want to rally around putting that plan together?
Mm-hmm.
So it is a muscle that you have to remind yourself to do.
Right.
And in the long run, it's also a contract between myself and our CEO, Jason Citron, right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm new on his team. And so,
Right.
doing a lot of work with him, we meet nearly every day and we pulse check on things. And I ask him a lot of questions and he's been very generous with the time. But,
Mm-hmm.
being kind of reassuring, like, I'm not expecting this from you, Steph. So
Mm-hmm.
just get to know the company. So that's also him leading in a human first way for me. It's that
Interesting.
permission aspect.
So I have two reactions to what you just
Yeah.
said. And like if somebody were to come to me and ask me, hey, how do I make sure that I don't follow that urge of wanting to perform right away? Which you are like, I can see it in your face. You're literally visually fighting it almost every day, it seems, right? And so the advice that I would give, and you can please tell me if that actually is
Mm.
helpful in the situation you're in, is twofold. Number one, at Mindmaven, for example, we have these 13 principles of how to operate. They're not
Yep.
values, they're more guidelines of like,
Mm.
just don't do, do these things or don't do these things. And the one thing that is really powerful, I think, is to never assume.
Yes.
Right. And so
Yes.
basically give yourself permission to ask yourself every single time when I think that this is what the company needs, is
Yeah.
this a fact or is it an
Yes.
assumption?
That's right.
And if you can only go to assumptions and say it is an assumption because I don't know of a fact, it is the point where it says, oh, that gives me permission to learn more
Yes.
until I can move the assumption to, to a fact-based thing. And most likely what will happen on that journey is that potentially what you actually originally assumed will shift. It's
Yes.
almost guaranteed, right? So that's number one. And
Almost
then
guaranteed.
number two is forbid yourself, it sounds a bit aggressive, but forbid yourself to make statements for the first 2 months.
Yes.
Statements of this is what we do, but always state the things you want to do in form of questions,
That's right.
right?
Curiosity
Just
is
ask, yeah,
huge. Yes.
exactly. And then like for example, a classic assumption is, oh, they probably need this because it's so obvious. You bring all this wealth of experience, they need this. But you might actually be right, but the assumption is that they haven't done that yet. And then you
Exactly.
go ask, and all of a sudden you're like, yes, we tried this, and this failed miserably because we da 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 da.
Yes.
Oh, because your users are of this age bracket or something, making this up. So
That's right. That's right.
those are the two things that basically I feel are maybe tactical advice one could give to somebody who just has this like, I need to prove to me
That's right.
that I'm there, that
Yeah.
I'm worthwhile there. And so,
Yes. No, it's exactly right. And, I always say with teams that everyone arrives in their position as fully formed humans. They
hmm
had a life before they walked in the door and got the new badge of whatever
right.
company you're working on. So
hmm
respect that. And as a
hmm
leader coming into this organization, these are fully formed humans with an organization that got this company to have 200 million people on the platform over a
hmm
series of years. And they made
hmm
great decisions around the things they needed to do at the time. We're just in a different moment. And so how
hmm
do I learn from those folks, their experiences, their context, and then how do we move it forward?
hmm
So a couple of the rituals that I'm doing with the team right now is one of the big things that I did before I started, and I shared it in my first week, was I created a user manual for myself. And we did this at Asana, so I learned this from Dustin Moskovitz.
hmm
But this is just a simple document where you, in a way, are a little bit vulnerable because you talk about the things that matter to you, the context for how you make decisions, things that earn your trust, things that
hmm
lose your trust. And it's in a written format, which I really like because people learn in different ways. And
Yes.
so, coming into the team and saying, like, hey, here's a little bit about me beyond the bio. Here's how I
hmm
move through work. Here's what I here is what I value. I
Yeah.
value connection. I value empathy. I value transparency. I want input. Here's what I do with feedback. Just kind of, I think, puts people at ease a little bit because I won't be
hmm
able to get to meet my whole team in one week, right?
You're
There's
right.
folks everywhere. So in those moments, as I kind of come on board and when there's a new leader, everyone gets just a little bit nervous because they don't know how to, how those relationships are going to get built. It just really helped me with this group.
Yes.
And Jason here, our CEO, has one as well. And so we shared, it's like the exchange of gifts in the beginning, like here's a little
Yes.
bit about me, here's a little bit about you. And so we're going
Yes.
to do that across the team here. So the team that's been working together kind of has that sensibility about each other, but that helped coming in. And then the second thing I'd say is, I've been on a listening tour, two ears, one mouth. Use the listening skills on, letting people share what they love to do, the context, some observations they have, things that they've needed, and then I can help contextualize that for them, but I'm letting them lead. And then the third thing, because I'm uniting two different groups here at Discord, I'm uniting a communications team and a marketing team that have been partners, but not under one roof in a while. So we're going to create some synergies between the team. And I've been very clear about, hey, let's have one all hands meeting. These are simple things, but when you're moving separately, you don't get that human interaction. And then we had a
Yes.
chance, we happened to have a chance where the whole team was on site a couple weeks ago, and we had some meal moments, and we played
Yay.
games together, and we broke down, like, how we all work and what our personality types are. And that, I think, was really helpful because I was learning and they were still learning about each other. So, as leaders come in, I think the tendency is just to like turn all over the pieces of the Legos and start reassembling. And I don't think that's always fair. So what I'm trying to do is understand where all the pieces are, and then how does the work need to be reassembled in a way that's helpful and good for the team so they can do their genius work, because that's why they're here.
Yes. All right. Oh, this is brilliant. So I had again some reactions. So one of the things is this user manual is exceptionally powerful. In fact, we have something similar. We call it the How I Work document.
Yes, that's right.
Similar thing, right? And the advice that we give, in addition to just producing it, is to have a very structured approach of rolling it out. First, you give it to people, let them consume it, but then there is a meeting in which you can discuss it. And
Oh, I love
in
that.
that meeting, you are basically saying, look, I want you to ask 3 questions about what you've learned. I want you to point out things. These are the 3 topics, right? 3 questions. Point out things that, up to 3 things that you find aligns a lot with you. And 3 things that are very different to you, if you can, right?
Yeah.
And basically, it just forces a conversation around your document. And the document isn't actually the thing anymore. It's basically
That's right.
just the basis of it. Because at the end of the day, that relationship is done through interactions,
Yeah.
right? And so it's really powerful when you do that. You will see the differences. You will see the things you have in common. And you will have plenty of all of those things. And what will happen in the long run, this is why I think it is amazing that you've done this, Stephanie. It can shortcut something that would take 6 to 12 months in terms of just getting to know Stephanie and how to work with her. It can basically make that happen in a quarter, at least on the rough edges, right?
Yeah.
And so forth. And the other thing, especially if you share, as you said, some vulnerabilities in it, including some of the weaknesses, it gives a comfort to people that now have to work with you about, like, oh, when that person reacts in that way, I don't have to basically see that as an admonishment of my behavior or my performance. It's more on my leader and a challenge of my leader, and so on and so forth. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is give instructions of how to behave in certain situations. You know, even around weaknesses. For example, the one that you would read in mine is that I sometimes am insensitive towards the things that I'm saying, especially if I'm under a lot of workload and a lot of stress.
Right.
And I sometimes am not situationally aware. But then I say, but I never want to judge people. I am not a person who judges people. So, for example, the instructions I have for you, if you ever feel judged by me in any shape or form, and what I mean with judge, Stephanie, is first saying, okay, that is so dumb, right? Like, that is a sentence I might say real quick, especially if I'm a little bit riled up.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm saying you are dumb. I don't want to say that. And so basically the instructions I give in that document is saying, hey, When you feel like you were judged, please bring it up right away. Don't fester upon it. Give me the opportunity to reword something, because I can almost always guarantee you what I intended to express was whole. Right? And this is the last thing I say is, and then basically make sure that these folks try it out. Because if they then practice it, they are creating these ruts of like, oh, it's safe to come to Stephanie and basically say I felt judged.
Yes.
Because Stephanie reacts in a very, very, in the way said in the document. I can rely on it, because most people will not believe what you write in the document until they go through
Well,
it.
exactly. Well, and it really, and I had a user manual before I started, but I updated it when I
Yeah.
got here, because the last time I wrote it, I had different context, and
Right.
I'm different. I'm a little different than
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
last time that I put that together, because of different experiences that I've had. I wrote it pre-pandemic. I've changed. There's been a lot of things in my life that have changed. So the things that I was emphasizing in that document before are not the things that I emphasize in this moment. So, I think it's giving each other access and permission and grace. Just
Yeah.
grace. What we
Yeah.
do and moving through life, it's hard. It's many highs, many lows, some plateaus, and some other moments where you're not always bringing your best self. And so, not managing by exception with people when those moments happen, but really having the context to be like, okay, I know this is how we like to communicate with each other. I didn't do as well today. Please give me that feedback, and it's totally okay.
When we
I think
talked,
powerful.
when we talked about making this call, you mentioned something about arriving in a new job, and not changing a lot, and seeing that as human first. I'd love you to share some more with our audience around those thoughts, because
Yeah.
that was so profound.
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming into an organization that has made a lot of changes. There's been company strategy that's changed. There's massive growth in Discord during the pandemic. This is one of the companies that like rose to the top of
Yes.
conversation in the zeitgeist, because people were looking for ways to connect, and online was the way to do it. And so the company's gone through a lot of growth and changes. And so, coming in, there's definitely a reason why I'm here. I know that. And there's opportunity for the company. I'm a story-led marketer. There's lots of opportunities. We have 200 million people on our platform. There's lots of stories to tell. There's lots of things we're doing to make sure that those people feel really good and safe on the platform. But the team has been through a lot, because they've been scaling up and they've been scaling down. And, trying to keep a North Star and execution is hard when all that's happening around you. So, one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about is, there's going to be some shifts we have to make, but can we make those shifts together? And can I present those ideas or those observations for where we might shift in a way that feels inclusive and engaging, and it's not me just telling them what to change? So, we're doing a couple of things here where there's been a little bit of a desire to have more communication flow across these teams. But we have leads on our teams, folks that are running, different parts of our marketing comms team, but they never met together. Like, they know each other, but there wasn't a rhythm of meeting one another every week, for dedicated time to talk about what each of these sibling organizations were doing.
Sure.
And so
Yes.
I don't know enough about what to change at this moment. Like, I have an instinct about some things we want to double down on, and some areas that we may have just some gaps because the company wasn't focused in that way. But I want this group to be a part of that conversation. I've been in organizations that have done a lot of transitions in a lot of different ways over 20 years, and I was not always part of those conversations when I was a senior leader, and that didn't feel like I was part of owning it. And so, really making sure that people have the context for why we might change some things up or move some things around. And also, the big question that I have is, what are all the things we're doing, and what can we say no to? So, to me, being human first is also about having some sort of harmony at work and in your life and in your contributions, and not just racing through the checklist. And I think what happens in marketing and comms organizations is a lot of us are Enneagram 2s. We're helpers. We want to do the things. We want to feel good about, what we create. But maybe we're doing it for reasons that aren't really in service of the business. It's kind of like we want to make other people happy in the org. So as we think about what shifts that we want to make, I want to do that in an informed way with input. But I also want to get their input on what are the things we probably should be out of the business of as an organization. And that way they're feeling ownership about it and not shame, like, oh, well, you spent all that time doing that. Maybe it didn't really matter. It's like, no, it did. But let's move on from it. But let's decide that together. So, I don't make decisions by consensus because I have to be a leader and make those calls, but I want to be informed. And I want people to feel like they have input into the direction because, again, they've steered it this far. And I'm not about to abandon the captains. We need to kind of figure these things out together. But I think change is hard. Nobody wants change. The New York Times wrote about this in April. It's like Silicon Valley loves change, but sometimes you need calm and you need conviction. And I'd rather build conviction around things than make some changes on an org chart when I barely even know the team.
Correct. And with that, you're giving the biggest gift of actually being human first in that sense. So Stephanie, this was absolutely awesome. I really appreciate you coming on to this show and chatting with me about it. I love this twist on hey, what can you do to be human first in the first few weeks of being on a roll? That was actually somewhat unique and new and just invigorating. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. And I'm going to get the book. So congratulations.
All right. Thank you.